Kronk and the Bro podcast.
Kronk and the Bro.
Welcome, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Welcome back. So if you joined us last time, we have this game called Book Report Trivia. And Patrick was so confident in his trivia. And, I was skeptical. And you know what? I was right to be skeptical. Because guess what? I fact-checked you, boo.
Shit.
So why don't you bring everybody up to speed about what I fact-checked?
Okay. So basically, the last episode was based around makeup, so we made our trivia questions based around makeup, cosmetics, and grooming, whatever, right? So Jim Carrey played the Grinch, the live-action Grinch deal, and my trivia question was, I thought from my failed internet source now that he was in makeup for over 2 hours, right?
But not over 2 hours, like 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Right, but right? What you found that he was basically in makeup for more than 3 hours. So basically the what I thought was the correct answer was actually incorrect.
It was because you had two options for your question. Was it over 2 hours or over 4 hours? And I selected over 4 hours because I had previously read some articles about him specific to that movie, and I got it wrong. But I have the Business Insider source. I fact-checked you. So this is what I read. It said that he actually, because he had to sit in the makeup chair for so long, the CIA actually had to come in to train him because he felt like he was being tortured in the makeup chair because he had to sit there for so long. So this particular article, and of course, the internet is full of lots of truths sources, and lots of lies. This said 8.5 hours in the makeup chair.
8.5 hours? Well, that's certainly a lot longer than 2. So
yeah, we're
going to safely assume that what I said was wrong.
Right. Well, and this is the thing, too. I think in order to warrant the CIA to come in to, help him get through this, traumatic, torturous makeup experience, it has to be a really long time in that makeup chair.
Which makes sense if that's the case. I mean, I know they have consultants for movies and all that stuff too, but
that's true. But it was the Grinch. The CIA didn't need to be there.
No, of course, but I mean, but it's being able to sit still because, it's it's crazy. So, at any rate, you have been awarded the winner of last episode's Book Report Trivia.
Nice.
So you're a full winner. Fact checked, hands down. You legit won. So
I win.
You're on a run.
Now this is 3
run.
3 in a row.
Yeah.
Nice.
This is bullshit. This sucks. I watched this stupid movie. Go ahead, lay it on me.
Well, actually, I'm thinking of doing something a little different. So at the beginning,
doing something different.
A little different.
Okay.
So when we first laid out the rules of this game, we said it could potentially be a TV show or movie. So I'll be nice. Now, actually, this isn't a show that I like, but I know, I want to talk about torture. I know this show will be torture for you. So I'm going to make you watch 2 episodes of Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Wow. Wow. I gotta win this trivia.
I don't know how you're going to write a book report on that. I mean, I'm actually not a fan of the show, but I will enjoy watching you watch it again and again. And I was nice. I could have said 3 episodes, but I only said 2.
Damn, we're gonna have to rehash this shit later. All right. Okay, fine. 2 episodes. They're what? They're I'm assuming half hour long.
I actually don't know how long they are. I didn't do my research.
This is awful.
Probably.
But you have to pick. So you have to pick 2 episodes.
I'll pick 2. I'm gonna pick 2 for you. Make sure they're extra good.
Oh my god. Fuck. All right.
I know how much you love reality TV.
Good job with the torture. That's good.
Little torture chair for you too.
Man. All right, that's it. So I have to watch this. I have to watch the fucking Kardashians. All right.
Yep. Well, yes. So we will find out next week how you did. But for the time being, I think we should jump into our topic for today, and we'll get back to your torture next week. Don't you think?
Yes. I have work to do, obviously, after this episode, so...
Yep.
It's going to be rough, but I'll get through it.
You'll get through it.
I got to win these stupid trivias. Okay, yeah, so our episode today...
Right. Well, it came to us because we're in the middle of this transition. For those of you who don't know, we are in the process of moving out of the city into, what would be called more of the suburbs. So the age-old question of the city versus the burbs, the suburbs.
Yep.
And, Patrick and I grew up in very different settings. I grew up in more of an urban setting. And would you call yours rural or it just suburban?
It's suburban. Rural is like, I consider rural is like, like 5 houses on a street.
True.
But the street is like almost a mile and a half long, like farm, like really stretched out houses. At least I'm in the suburbs in New Hampshire, and like at least like it's not that there are parts of New Hampshire that are rural, like that are like
right, but
out,
your
but
town,
my town is not. My town suburbs, new development, plenty of roads. Not that it wasn't busy, but at least like houses had land and they were spread out, but it also wasn't. The houses were relatively close together. You could see the houses.
Yeah.
Rural, I would say, would be like you have to look over a hill to see the next house, or like. It's
right,
like
or no house
away.
in sight.
Right.
Yeah.
You
have to drive everywhere.
That to me is rural. That's like, I'm sure people in like, you hear about the Midwest and like, like Nebraska and Kansas, places like that where it's really stretched out. There's a lot of land in between. I mean, that's what I would consider like rural. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm so curious as a suburban kid, like where you land on the city and its culture, and you've been there for 12 years?
12 years.
So
in New York City, yeah.
You're a city goer now.
I know. It was an adjustment. But at least what made it easier, I guess what made it easier was when I moved to the city. I moved to the city after college, so I was already like kind of in the mode, relatively new. It was like a year after I graduated college. So it's like I was used to walking around and doing my own thing and not having to worry about having to drive, which is great because the bars are open in New York City till 4 a.m.
There you go.
So it's great that you don't have to drive anywhere.
Beat that, New Hampshire. Beat that.
I know. Well, of course, like, yeah, we'll get into the pros and cons of the suburbs, but that was easy for me because it was after college. But at the same time, it's the pros and cons are interesting. In that in New York City, you get a kick out of the crazy people that are around because sometimes they entertain you.
Right.
You see, these random people, street performers, or just strange looking people, or just like random people walking down the street, and you're like, oh, that's a really funky looking jacket, or whatever. I mean, there's so many unique personalities in New York.
People watching is the best in New York.
People watching is good because, but eventually, you get to a point where you see someone and your city instincts are telling you like, this guy's about to panhandle. Like I can tell it's weird. I can tell within 2 seconds how a person steps on a train, and I know this person's going to ask everyone for money.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing. So that stuff, like the city stuff that hits you in the face, that it's happening and you can't do anything about it, it's just the way it is, you move on with your day. That stuff's annoying, but, but I think the restaurant scene, the bar scene, it's unmatched.
Oh, yeah.
It's unmatched.
The type of cuisine you get in New York City, you just can't get in any other city. And just like the diversity of cuisine.
Yeah, that's
unmatched.
That's the right thing to say. Diversity of cuisine is there because you can certainly get, good Italian other places, but they may not necessarily have like, Korean in the next spot, or any other type of cuisine. So yeah, I would say the strong diversity of cuisine. New York City itself, and this is like, I mean, it's crazy to think, but you can't suck as a restaurant in New York City.
I mean,
you won't survive unless you have
some restaurants are dodgy though. Like some are borderline.
Yeah, if you have if you have someone who's rich who owns a property and they just want to have a restaurant and they have something, I mean, yeah, I guess you could kick around, but eventually, like, it's so crazy, like, they'll find you out, whatever. But that's also what's good about the city too, is that every bar has to bring it. Every bar has to be good. Mm-hmm. Every restaurant has to be good. Any business that's there has to be good. So it's like it's kind of a pressure to perform, which is great for everybody else. But obviously in the suburbs, contrast, if you're the only one that sells shoes and sneakers within a radius, you can afford to suck because everyone's got to go to you anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not gonna harp on it too much, but it is hard going to other cities. Like, the certain cuisine just like does not step up. Yeah. In the same way that like New York is so good.
Yeah. No, but at least the cities overall, if you can walk to restaurants and like, as long as you can, I would say a good city to live in is like if you could walk to good places you could pick out within 10 minutes. Like if you have 3 or 4 go-to spots you can walk to within 10 minutes. I think that's a good city if you have that available. Right.
Well, and the other thing that the city has to offer is like the cultural aspects. Like that to me was always why I never envisioned myself in the suburbs, although it only took a pandemic to get me there. Mm-hmm. Was, the access to art, museums, live music, all different types of culture, theater, performance, movies, like everything is right there in its own little epicenter.
Yeah, and I think New York City itself, you get spoiled, but like, yeah, if you think about it, you might not like other cities. You might prefer the
I'm even talking about like city to suburb comparison.
Right.
Like, where's the closest museum in the suburbs? Like, you might have one tiny little museum, but like that's it. Yeah. And where's the performing arts venue in that town? I don't know. It's just like little things like that you just get used to having as a part. I mean, of course, we've all like lived without those things during the COVID year, but I miss those things. The thing I miss most of all is going to see music live.
Yeah, that's
like that
cool.
To me. I've seen some good Zoom productions and so on and so forth, but I miss live performance, but I really, really miss live music.
And usually, and of course, like, suburbs, there might be small little concert venues for, I don't know how many people, maybe like a couple hundred people. Like, obviously you can sometimes like the high schools, of course you have like high school kids perform, but like sometimes they might have other bands that perform in the high school, auditorium or whatever. But chances are, if it's a band you really like, you're going to have to go to a city where they're going to be touring, where there's going to be an arena, where there's going to be at least like a decent size like performing center that has at least 3,000-4,000 capacity, right, for a band you really like. So, that's part of it. But yeah, and hopefully cities have all that stuff, like you said, the restaurants, the fun stuff. And if you live in the city, you want to be able to walk there because
yeah, but I want to get a little more nitty gritty with you though. Yeah. Because we've always had this debate about whether or not to raise kids in the city.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So now listen, I think, certainly there's benefits to both scenarios, whether you're raising your family in the city or you're raising your family outside the city. I always envisioned myself raising my family in the city for like a little while. Like, I never quite envisioned like the full childhood there, but like I do still think, I know you disagree. Look at your face. I know you disagree with me, but I think before they go to school, like until they're like 5 or so, you could totally make it work in an apartment where you can go to the parks. Look at your face. Where you go to the parks. And yes, I understand you don't want to carry a stroller up the subway stairs. That's fine.
Hell
we'll
no.
drive places.
Hell no.
Fine. Or we'll walk. We'll take the car. It's fine. I do think there is a lot to offer in the city.
I'm going to disagree with you there, homegirl, because the thing is, like, there's certain things you want to teach your kids, right?
Right.
Anyone who all of our friends who have kids know this already, because some of them have 2 kids, some at least have 1 kid. They put everything in their mouth. They touch everything. Right. You know, they do all stuff. You're trying to tell your kid, don't put mommy's cell phone in your mouth, or the remote control in their mouth, right? Mm-hmm. So then you take them outside, and they're out there, and they see, I'm gonna pick on sketchy city people, right. Some grungy people, they're just digging through garbage, and they're eating food out of the garbage, and they're grabbing things out of the garbage.
That's fair.
And there's trash everywhere. I mean, it depends on which city. Some cities are cleaner, but that's one of the things. It's like, first thing, it's like, well, that guy's doing it. Dad, why can't I do it? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, certain things I don't want, want to expose it to, because then I got to explain it, So little things like that. Mm-hmm. And cities are, I guess, rougher. The other thing too is, I guess, I'll pick on New York City a little bit here. Is if you go, the other thing is, if you outside of grungy people, regular people, 9-to-5ers who go, right?
Okay.
Upper East Side of Manhattan, fun place if you're young, because if you're young and you're of legal drinking age, right? Because there's bars everywhere. There's bars, restaurants everywhere, right? But now, kids are waking up. There's beer balls all over the place. There's puke on the sidewalk.
Yeah, I would argue more so downtown than Upper East. I mean,
there's more downtown
Upper
too.
East
Downtown's
has
nuts too.
Like Second Ave is pretty bumping, but can you imagine like having kids like in the East Village or something? People do it all the time.
I wouldn't.
I know you wouldn't. You've stood firm with that. I don't know. There's always this image in my mind. Like, my dad grew up in Queens, in Astoria. And, of course, Queens was very different then. It was a lot safer. His parents left the door open. Like, they played on the neighborhood streets. Nothing happened. Like, it was a very different neighborhood back then.
Yeah.
But, I always have there's this picture of him when he was a baby, and he's in a studio apartment. Like, you can see my grandma is having Thanksgiving dinner, and you can see the bed in the background in the crib, and like they're happy and having Thanksgiving dinner. So I think you can live with less. Like, the child will be fine is the point. Like, I understand eventually you want them to be able to run around, have fresh air, have a yard, have their own swing set or whatever.
A lot of this stems from me personally and how nuts I was with energy. How much of a spaz
I have that to look forward to. Then.
Yes, I was a spaz. I'll be completely honest. I mean, my attention span wasn't great growing up, obviously, but just moving around and taking my toys with me and running up and down the stairs, like, I can't imagine what I would have been like in the city as a kid.
Yeah.
If you took my super hyper personality, and now I'm stuck in a small studio apartment, I would have driven my parents crazy.
Yeah, I know.
I would have driven my parents nuts. They'd take me to the park all the time, and I would have run around the park, and then I would have explored other stuff in the city. I mean, who knows what
Yeah.
I don't know.
No.
That's my hesitation, because just knowing me personally. Now, there are nice pockets of places in the city, but chances are they're, super expensive to live in, but I get
right. You are paying that premium price, yeah.
But yeah, cities in general, you are going to have a smaller place. That's the way it is, unless you're super loaded and you have a huge penthouse that's basically the same square footage as a regular house. And in that scenario, go ahead. I say go for it if you have the dough. Yeah. If you have the dough and you can spread out, and the kid has a room, because you also want to be like, you need to go over here, like go away a little bit. So I can see you.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot more comfortable accommodations that you could have, and certainly if you have a apartment that's the size of a house, you probably have a weekend house as well, or
if you are
budget to go
yeah,
elsewhere, go to other places. Maybe that's your pied-à-terre or something.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. Yeah, it's probably over-romanticized in my head, honestly. You know, like, not until you're actually doing it do you see, like, oh, yeah. I mean, you also have to think about what's best for the kid, too. Like, certainly, yes. I recognize now you always talked about the garbage in New York, and it never bothered me until COVID. It really didn't. Like, I do think people got messier and our neighborhood got messier, but I really just never noticed it in the same way like you noticed it. And maybe that's because you're a suburban kid. Yes.
Well, obviously, what COVID did too, COVID kind of put a stamp on my opinion of it now. Really? Because what happened, right? So it's great where we lived. We lived in a great area where there were bars and restaurants and all that stuff, but it's like, it was kind of like New Orleans a little bit. Like the day after, those of you who've been to New Orleans, you go to Bourbon Street, you wake up the next day. Now New Orleans does a good job of this at least, but they have street sweepers every morning cleaning up the streets because there's going to be bottles and there's going to be trash and cups and there's beads, which at least they've recycled the beads now. But like, there's every day they clean those streets for that. Our area, they don't clean the streets every day. They clean the streets they clean it one side of the street twice a week, basically, right? So you're waking up and there was bottles, there was like street meat, containers of rice and chicken on, And what happened with COVID? This is what drove me crazy. What drove me crazy about COVID was now. Not only are we so when the club stopped for a little bit, there weren't as many cups and there weren't as many street meat containers and stuff. But guess what was all over the curb? Masks. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Stripped everywhere, taken off, all that stuff. And I was just like, it's never going to not be messy. It's the kind of one of those things that I was like, this is how it is.
Oh yeah, I think it actually got messier because when bars were allowing. They weren't allowed to serve inside, so they were allowing those to-go drinks, which for a minute was like...
It was cool.
It was great. Like, it did feel like New Orleans. That's a perfect parallel.
We had a little open container window for a little bit there.
We did.
Which is kind of cool.
But
then obviously not everyone is cool about it. They leave stuff everywhere and, whatever it is.
Oh, yeah. It really just, like, exploded the mess. It really got exponentially worse.
In any city, obviously, if you can walk to restaurants and bars... That's great. Like, it really is great. I think it's great if you don't have kids and you're like, ages, of course, 21 to, most people probably, let's say like late 30s, 40s, right? Like, that's a good window to like live in the city. You're still young enough where you can walk around with no problems, but if you don't have kids, I think it's great. I recommend anyone to live in the city for a little bit, as long as it's a good city.
I see those older ladies and older gentlemen.
Those people, I can't even imagine.
Those are lifers right there
with canes. Like
no, but they're doing well. I'm talking about the people who are really. That's probably why they stay so fit. Because they're walking to the supermarket every day. They're walking everywhere.
But I see a lot of women. I respect respect to the elderly in Manhattan, because Manhattan, it's crazy. Like, you have freaking delivery guys who should all be getting killed by trucks and buses, other cars. Taxis are going crazy. Now Uber and Lyft guys are going crazy, and these people are like still with the cane going uphill and walking to the doctor, walking to the grocery store, like doing their laundry. Like, these people are on the grind.
Groceries.
And they've probably been in the same apartment for 40, 50 years. They've probably seen the neighborhood change over 3 different times, and they're still grinding. And I can't imagine. I mean, I respect them for that, but it's like, at a certain age, I want my own house. You know what I mean? I would want my own house. I don't want to just be on the grind that long. That's a long time with a cane too. Like,
with a walk people, up, probably walking up.
Walk up. Some of these people you see, they've definitely been walking around with a cane for at least 15 years. Yeah. In New York City, it's really not a great city to be in, any city really, if you have to walk you just have a cane. But I don't know. Props to people who are still grinding it out. But
I know.
Yeah, eventually, though, I'm glad we're making the switch to the suburbs.
I am too.
Suburban areas.
I am too. Hey, I was the one who prompted it, actually. I mean, I think I really just craved more space and, this proximity to nature that we didn't have, like, rather than having, hikes or nature walks just being a weekend activity. Now we can, take little jaunts during the week.
Yeah. Yeah. And, obviously the suburbs, you are sacrificing the fun stuff. That you totally are, because a lot of people will say, well, you can still take a train into the city, but you're still going to most people who live in the suburbs are still going to have to drive 10, 15 minutes to get to a train. If there's like a light commuter rail, of course, like Amtrak or whatever. I mean, you're still driving further to get into a city. So, depends on what city you're going to. Some cities don't even have any kind of Amtrak. In some cities, you just have to drive there. And there's bus lines too. But talking about suburbs, you have to drive at least 10 minutes to most people have to drive at least 10, 15 minutes to even get to a bus or a train.
Right.
So
well,
that
was my problem too, because I've always had amenities. Like growing up in Yonkers, I walked to things every day, all the time. Yeah. It wasn't quite as urban as Astoria, but it was close. Like there were things everywhere.
Yeah.
Just like I was always independent in that way, where going to pick up Chinese food and going to Domino's or going to 7-Eleven, like whatever it might be. And so that's why I really held firm with you that I need my amenities. Otherwise I'm going to go crazy. No. I can't be in the middle of nowhere with nothing.
Oh no.
I'm not ready for that.
No, that's a different lifestyle. If you're that's rural, that's
nope.
20 minutes, if you got to drive 20 minutes to the nearest convenience store or general mart or something like that. I mean, that's crazy. That's a long ways away.
See, I have this theory about you that you would have a hard time adjusting to something quite that big of a transition, because I think you like having your city amenities as well. This is a good hybrid that we found, because we do have stuff nearby.
Yeah,
but anything more suburban than this, I think
spread out, you mean?
Yeah, I think you like being able to go get pizza at 11 p.m. if you're still hungry. That's another
shocker. That's another benefit to the city that I will miss dearly. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I feel like I'm adaptable to most places. I don't know if I'd want to do the farm deal.
Mm-mm. I'm not on board with that, so you're good.
I love the other doing the other stuff versus not having to worry about chickens and pigs and cows and all that stuff.
God, no way.
I don't think I could do the farm stuff. I mean, I guess if I grew up in it, I guess I could figure it out, but no, I'd rather.
And also, full disclosure, we would never have the farm where the animals get killed. We would have the farm where we just have them as pets. Obviously.
Well, yeah. Well, no. I mean, you could raise chickens and just have
just want their eggs.
Get eggs, and then you get the cow. The cows can give you milk. I mean, whatever. I mean, if I did that, I would want it to be a business. If I had a farm, I would want a business attached to it. I don't know if I'd want to do that just for hobby. Just to have pets.
Oh, yeah, no. I think you would want to be trying to generate revenue. That way, and then maybe we could have a pie shop or something,
and then at least have some. You can have some of your own food, which is good. But but that's the thing. It's the Burbs. You will be sacrificing restaurant food, or at least
in a big way.
In a big way, mm-hmm. and there are suburbs that have plenty of good restaurants, but that's a 15-minute drive versus sometimes in New York City you can just the best restaurants are three blocks away, because like I said. These cities, they want to hang and survive and pay the rent. They got to be good.
Yeah, so. I also feel the bread and the bread products in New York, the pizza, the pasta, the things that are made fresh, are just so much better in New York. The bagels, I don't know if it really truly is the New York water, or do you find that eating in New Hampshire and then eating in New York?
Well, I think places like New York and other worldly cities, if they're charging a lot for restaurants, for example, we'll go with Italian, for example, in New York City. I think these major restaurants that have to step up their game, I think they order a lot of international stuff. Like for example, they probably order these Italian restaurants in New York City. Mm-hmm. They probably order a lot of products directly from Italy.
Oh, I'm sure.
And they bring them there. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're a decent restaurant, now I grew up in New Hampshire, right? If you're a decent Italian restaurant in New Hampshire, and there's really no other shops in town, maybe a couple other restaurants, you're good. You can make your homemade stuff, which is probably still pretty good.
Right. But in comparison to what's around.
No, it's not. There's different levels. There's different levels of expectations. So it's like, they're measured by two completely different things. What's sad is a mediocre restaurant that actually has decent food. You would think if it's mediocre, mm-hmm. it could survive in New York, but that's not always the case.
No.
Sometimes even if it's good, for whatever reason, if there's another good place across the street, it won't survive. So it's tough.
Yeah, and certainly restaurants have gone through a really tough year and a half. Yeah. But I'd be curious to hear now that you've lived in both kind of different settings, when you were growing up, was there something that you wish you had living in the suburbs? Because to me it always comes back to missing the culture or kids having too much time on their hands or something.
I don't think I would have changed where I grew up as a kid, because I liked that. Nice. What I liked about it was, let's just say a core 6 to 8 kids that I would hang out regularly. It worked out because they were all within 1 mile bike ride from me, or not even. Yeah, so basically a bike ride, basically a 3-4 minute bike ride. I could hang out with 6 to 8 kids that I would regularly hang out with within, if I got on my bike, within 4 to 5 minutes.
That's nice.
Which is crazy to think about, because you can't. I mean, even if you're in the city, it probably takes you 10 minutes if someone who lives in the same neighborhood as you. It still might take you 10 minutes to even walk there. So that was cool. The thing about suburbs too is there are open fields everywhere. Nothing was crowded. In the city, if you try to play on a soccer field, you got to jump on the right time to play flag football or even whatever sports you might play, because there's going to be people there. You have to everything you do in the city, you have to expect people there. That's why I like the suburbs. Now again, in the suburbs, maybe in high school and obviously summers home from college, it would have been nice if we could just hop on a train and go to the bars downtown. That would have been nice.
Right.
But it ends up being, okay, one person has to drive, but then my buddies got to drink. And then I was like, well, this sucks, but I have to babysit now. I mean, mm-hmm. So that would have been, for suburbs-wise, and then also just I guess maybe as a kid too, if there was something like that where I could just hop on a train and go into the city from the suburbs, that would be ideal. That's more in places like New Jersey and Long Island, all that stuff that have trains like that. But I think that would be the only thing. But other than the burbs are great, just of course space, oxygen, which is
I definitely smell the difference.
Yes,
I 100% smell the difference, and just
you can
feel it as soon as you get out of the car. You just feel the gust of fresh air.
Yeah, and now this is also we're also attached to New York City, so we're getting the trashy, smelly city smell.
Oh my God, the summer is the worst. It's burning garbage.
Yeah.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, and it's so bad. It's a lot. There's a lot of people. They don't clean. They aren't able to clean it enough. It's got to be difficult to do. But yeah, I think that would be my thing. More public transit in the suburbs, or at least attached to the suburbs. But even if they did have it somewhere in the suburbs, mm-hmm. it would still be 10-15 minutes probably to get to the train, because it'd have to be in only one location. Yeah. Now, unless you live close to it, of course. But mm-hmm. I think that would be what I would change about the suburbs.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, my wanderlust started a lot younger, even before I was of drinking age. My wanderlust really started more as a teenager. Yeah. So I couldn't imagine not being able to go into the city and just I don't know, like go.
That's a good point. I didn't really think about.
Go like I'm talking about more like like teenage years, I guess.
Like going to the mall.
Yeah, going to the mall, or like imagine going and exploring somewhere, like Manhattan, or going to an exhibit that was different. And of course, we went to the mall too. Like our parents would drop us at the mall, and we'd.
Oh, I'm gonna be such a paranoid parent. I'm already.
Oh my god, me too. Even some of the things that my parents let me do, I'm like, oh my god.
Can't do it. I can't let them do it now. Like I can see.
I mean, I feel like I have to let my kids do that
sucks.
because that would be such a double standard if I didn't. Like my dad let me take
sketchy now.
the
People are
boat
sketchy now.
out by myself because I had my license.
No, yeah. The boat on the lake
amazing.
The boat on the lake is a little different because it's like.
I was 13 though.
Yeah, actually, that is pretty.
That's really young, right?
Yeah.
I mean, good for them. I mean, I did fine. Luckily,
just like what I know about the city now and all the stuff I've experienced there. Like, I wouldn't want my high school, middle school aged kids, grade school kids, to be going in the city by themselves.
But I did.
Oh man, different times.
Yeah.
Different times.
I mean,
now.
You want to hear a funny story?
Yeah, sure.
So, my cousin from upstate New York, she did not want to go into the city as a kid. Like, she was a little more shy.
Yeah.
So I finally convinced her. I said, I've been going on the subway. I've been taking these acting classes. Like, come on the subway with me. We'll go into the city. Finally convinced her to do it. First time she's on. I see her. She has this, like, shocked. We're like 10 minutes into our ride. She has this shocked look on her face. And you remember the phones when you had to type in each individual letter?
Yeah.
So she was writing a message to me because she didn't want to say it out loud. And the message said, that guy flashed me. And I was like, God. I kid you not. I was looking around like, I don't see anything. And then sure enough, this guy, creep, had his like junk hanging over his pants, and he just like pulled his shirt up. We were like 13. It was so disgusting. And
that's awful.
I also just like could not believe it because it took me years to convince her to get on the subway.
And that rarely happens. And
that's never happened to me since.
Right.
That's the craziest part.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding?
She's just not.
That was the only time, the one and only time.
She's just not destined to be in the city. I mean, that's pretty much what it comes down to. Yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah.
That flasher ruined it.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of cool, fun people in the city, and there are these random, sketchy people that are spread out. So, yeah,
I know. Debate lives Avoid the flashers, kids. Avoid the flashers of the world.
Don't go in this. Oh man, don't go in the city until you're like, I don't know.
I'd be so. What is like the age that feels right to you?
I think after graduating college, I wouldn't even send underage college kids there.
Patrick,
listen. I know I was a party kid growing up. Underage kids in Manhattan. It's crazy.
No way. We're
until 4:00 in the morning.
You cannot stop our future kids from going into the city until they're out of college. That's insane. No way. I'm putting a stop to that right here.
I know it's impossible. It's
impossible.
I'm saying what I hope is ideal.
I'm going to tell you right now that's not going to happen.
That won't happen. I just think like it's nuts.
Well,
hopefully they go to the right neighborhoods. I guess they go to the right neighborhoods.
Of course. We're not sending them to dangerous neighborhoods.
They're gonna go to they're gonna go to a random, freaking warehouse in Brooklyn for like a roof party, and there's gonna be like some crazy. Who knows? Like this.
Listen, I've heard the stories of you and your parties in New Hampshire, and I have to say, you started drinking a lot earlier than I did as a kid. So,
well, high school.
Oh, yeah, just the age you started drinking underage.
Yeah, I mean...
You started way earlier than I did.
Actually, yeah. I mean,
and that's because my theory is because you have too much time on your hands in the burbs. It's true.
Kronk, come on.
Baby.
It's so much easier. These kids... maybe not now, but I think maybe growing up, it's so much. It's easy for kids to go to a bar that's open till 4:00 in the morning. Crowds of people going in, fake IDs.
Yeah, fake IDs, fine. But you can't get in at 16, 15. Like, didn't you have parties in high school like that?
There's stuff like that, but it was actually hard to get. It was hard to get alcohol because it's true. You had to know someone who was 21 when you were in your little suburban bubble, and then they had to go and I don't know. I mean, other guys figured out. I didn't really drink a lot because it was so difficult, which is actually a good thing, right? I didn't really drink a lot because of that, but it's harder to get booze suburbs. You can go to New York City and like, if you can get you can go to freaking Chinatown, get a fake ID made, and then go right to the bar. And like, you can drink till 4:00 in the morning.
I don't know.
It's simple. And then like convenience stores, sketchy convenience stores
to do though too.
They'll sell you beer if they're a little overloaded with stuff in their fridge and they want to move some inventory.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
In New York City, there's a lot of people I trust, but there's an equal amount of people I don't trust.
Oh yeah, I know.
At least cities wise, I know we're just picking on New York City here, but I don't know. But
we're gonna have to have it out because they're not. Our future kids are not waiting until college to go into the city. That's crazy talk.
Ugh.
That's crazy talk.
Well, I'm just gonna have to go along with them and chaperone.
be like the beast mode parent.
I'm gonna be that freaking dad. I don't trust anyone. I don't know. I mean, yeah. Listen. Even if you're an adult, you're just as much danger as you would be if you were a 16-year-old kid.
I would agree with that.
But there's so many things like. I don't know. There's so many things to teach kids about sketchy people, situations.
Right, but it is also good life experience to be put in those challenging situations, as opposed to maybe like when you're older, they become more. You could become like more fearful of them. It's good to throw yourself into challenging situations younger, I think.
Yeah, but
because you have to work through them.
But you know what's better is letting other idiots make the mistakes so you don't have to make them. That's the life hack.
Of course. Yeah, I know. That was always your strategy as a kid, right? You evaded.
I'm like, that looks kind of sketchy. And, they try to convince you. I'm like, well, I don't know. And then they'd be like, you're a wimp. And then they would go and do it. And then they would they'd mess it up or just something stupid would happen. I'd be like, oh, all right. Now I know. I mean, you got to have a little bit of, why don't you try first? And then I'll do it after you.
Right.
That's the way to do it.
Well, now we're on this cusp of rolling back into suburban life, so we'll see how it goes, and we'll see. We'll weigh our burbs versus the city options.
Yeah, as we build onto our new suburban life.
I know, our new suburban life,
which starts with me watching this stupid reality TV.
This is perfect. It's the first thing you can watch on the TV here. We just moved in. Now it's time for you to dive into a new show. It's perfect. The timing is perfect.
Reality TV. Unbelievable.
I know. Extra torturous. You're going to be keeping up with the Kardashians. Stay tuned. Come back next time. Beginning of episode 22, Pat will be presenting his book report about what he heard and what he watched.
Evil.
Enjoy.
No, I won't enjoy, but
I know you won't.
Props to you on the punishment. Good choice. Mm-hmm. I'm sure they're all wonderful, nice people. But I doubt I will like the reality TV show. Until next time.
Oh, I can't wait. Yes. Until next time, tune in next week and see what he has to say.
I'm going to die. All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for listening and watching.
See you next week.
Kronk and the Bro is produced in partnership by House of Kronk and Young Hall. This episode is edited and mixed by Sarah Kronk. If you like what you heard, please subscribe and follow us on social media at Kronk and the Bro. Thanks for listening.